Welcome back. We're here with Gary Barnes. I'm Drew Robison. Take it to the house. Gary and I, we've been talking about the point in your life when you kind of realized that you didn't really want to go play in the CFL. The NFL didn't work out and had a hamstring injury, which I know at that point it's like razor thin. You know, any little thing can get you off the path. So the NFL dream kind of ended. You came back home. Tell me how, from that point to working with kids, either with regard to becoming a dad or just getting involved in coaching, how did that get you to a point where you were really feel like you were called in your heart to work with youth athletics?
Well, when I first got back, the first thing you always do, you go check out your old high school, see what's going on, and I think that I went out there and it actually was football season when I had first got back home. And at Whites Creek, we do a thing called Showtime, and that's typically when all the alumni come back and see all the kids kind of earn their stripes for varsity. So I went out there for Showtime and winded up, being a big part of Showtime, getting the kids hype and making sure they understood the tradition of that program. And I think after that day right there, I jumped into coaching that day. I coached with Coach Coor, Coach Armstrong. From that point, I probably might have coached with them 2 years, just trying to give what I had back. And that right there is what aided the whole path for the youth. Because right then, I never knew that I could kind of motivate kids to do exactly what I've learned.
Right.
And without yelling, screaming, anything like that, I was able to transform some linebackers into some great players just by reading keys. The
Yeah.
little things, I was able to teach just the little things that I picked up on. I was able to communicate that to kids, and I watched that just take place where average players turned into great players. So did that for 2 years, and at that point now it's still, because all of this is free time. So I had to find myself, like, how is Gary going to make money to be able to support what I'm doing out here for free.
Right. Right.
And I went into more or less the real estate market at that point. Went into the real estate business, and probably pushed in that line for about 10 years, all the way up until I think, what was it, 9/11. I remember 9/11
Okay.
hitting, and the economy kind of crashed in the real estate market.
Right.
When that happened, I had actually been working at FedEx for a little while, just trying to, because I didn't want to spend none of my main money in the real estate market for
Right.
insurance, and then on top of that, um, I was now engaged,
Right.
and to buy the wedding ring, I figured, let me make money on the side
Right.
to pay for this wedding ring.
And was this a girl you'd known for a long time, or
Yes,
did you just okay?
uh
High
huh,
school, high school
yes,
sweetheart.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, after high school, after
Okay,
high
but you
school,
knew her in high
yeah.
school. Gotcha. Okay.
And at that point, when 9/11 hit, the economy crashed, so I had to kind of redirect. And FedEx, because of the leadership that I was showing in FedEx, I got offered a management position down in Fort Lauderdale. So I became a operations manager out of the FLL, Fort Lauderdale Airport,
Yeah.
and managed down there. And within those management skills of managing and operating logistics, not to mention, now I'm down here in this South Florida market where I'm looking at these kids, looking at,
A lot
looking
of
at,
talent down
look,
there.
man, a lot of talent. So now I'm looking
Yeah.
at, okay, this was Nashville, this was Middle Tennessee. Now look at this, South Florida. Now I'm also in the business where I'm also managing parents. Now I'm in a production based business. So everything is kind of it's kind of like you're earning stripes off of everything that you're
Yeah.
seeing and your experiences and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So then that, I got into the community and started just checking out kids, checking out, going to games, going to whether it's the St. Thomas game or the Booker T. Washington game, just seeing what was really out here in Florida. The track development down in Florida was through the roof. And so I would say I operated as a FedEx manager down there for about 5 years. We winded up moving back to Nashville, and at that point, I brought a whole nother hunger and desire back to this area that where which I understood where we were behind versus where we should be.
Right.
And I figured because of what they did with youth sports down in Fort Lauderdale, I said, you know what? My biggest opportunity may not be just in high school. It may be in youth sports.
Right.
My son, when we got back, my son was right at the cuff of 5 or 6 years old. So within that, now it really brought me into it because here I am in the youth sports
Yeah.
and kind of still kind of not just trying to jump into it and kind of let him find his way in youth sports. I realized, well, am I going to be this guy that's on the sideline nitpicking what somebody else is doing with my kids and the other kids instead of getting out there and helping?
Right.
And I say once I jumped out there and started helping, I haven't stopped.
You know what's interesting? There's a, you remember the old movie Trading Places. So there's an interesting sociological question that has existed for a long time, which is, do people become who they are because of their genetics, or do they come who they are because of their environment? And obviously, even though it's a comedy and Eddie Murphy was hilarious in it, the sort of the message of Trading Places was it's the environment, right? If you change somebody's environment, they become very different. And it's fascinating to me how South Florida, South Louisiana is another example. There's certain areas of Ohio and Pennsylvania, and then in California, it's not always as simple as, well, there are just more people here. There's a culture built into youth sports and built into certain youth sports. Just a little parallel. When I was up in the Annapolis, Maryland, D.C. area, I was fascinated, and my son, who's 24 now, a little older than Jordan, my older son, he was about 8, 9 years old, and he was real involved with basketball. I mean, he was football too, but man, youth basketball
That's right.
in D.C. is phenomenal.
The Mappa.
And it is amazing, when you watch a group of kids, play on AAU team, and Andrew ended up going to, they went to Akron to the LeBron tournament. They went all these places and traveled. But those are little dudes that are 9 years old, and they're shooting 25 threes a game.
Right.
And they have such a, I would say 80% of points scored in those games are transition points because they know how to get the ball out and go.
That's right.
And there's a cultural thing to speed. And I remember when I first came back to Tennessee, after having done that, and Andrew was just a little bit older, and we got Andrew involved in some AAU, even though we were at a small school in Franklin. He was playing AAU with Darius and Gavin and those guys, and then eventually he went down because those were a year older than him. He ended up playing with James Wiseman, who's another NBA guy, with the Coach Wynn and Donald Wynn and those guys with In Play, which was a great group of guys too. But the thing that I found with a lot of the school kids, because I was the school coach at this small little school in Franklin, is so many parents are so involved that they're coaching their kids from the stands. They're telling their kids this stuff. And the thing I kept hearing was, slow down, slow down, slow down. And I had to have a meeting with my parents, and I said, look, first of all, you need to stop coaching your kids from the stands, but you need to stop telling them to slow down, because I'm telling them the opposite.
Right.
And they're like, but coach, they're making all these mistakes. And I'm like, that's right. They are. We don't play so that we make no mistakes. We play so that we can be great. And if you learn that the way to not make mistakes is to slow down, then you will make fewer mistakes, and we will get blown out of the gym. We have got to move the ball. We have got to go. And the other thing I was going to say about Tennessee, and I think this is indicative of culture too. Even though I moved to Tennessee, the general culture in Tennessee was not as advanced with young boys, but with youth girls basketball, Tennessee was phenomenal. It was like nothing I had ever seen, because we'd go to these tournaments, and then I'd see these 10-year-old girls play.
That's right.
And they're flying all over the court. And I started thinking, okay, this is Pat Summitt's land. This is where all these Shelbyville High School in the 80s was like, they were cranking out UT players and Tiffany Woosley and all these, and it's like Tennessee, because of the Vols, it's amazing how much having the Nick Saban of women's basketball was right there in Knoxville, how much that changed the culture of youth girls basketball.
That's right.
And so anyway, it is fascinating how that has an impact, and how it trickles all the way down to the youth. And I don't know a lot of the details about some of the other sports, like maybe girls softball or volleyball, or even, lacrosse is such a specific sport that's huge in the Mid-Atlantic, and it'll never be as big here as it is in the Mid-Atlantic. But some of those other sports, obviously, the further south you go, the bigger baseball is. I mean, I remember in South Louisiana where I was, basketball was third on the list. Baseball was number 2. I mean, football rules, but baseball was a clear notch ahead of basketball in terms of parents giving money to facilities, kids wanting to play at the next level. It was all about baseball. And but let me ask you this question. I'll ask you this question, and then we'll answer it after one more break. But the question I want to ask you about is, particularly when it comes to basketball and baseball, those are sports with youth kids that can easily consume your entire 12-month calendar.
That's right.
Football, not so much. It's a little more compartmentalized. You're not putting pads on all year round. But I'm wondering what your thoughts are about those things. We ended up kind of going more the basketball route and not the baseball route, just because of schedule, and because he was more excited about basketball than he was about baseball. And I had been coaching basketball as well, so it was kind of an easier choice. But you kind of look back on it sometimes and you go, I wonder if he could have actually been a big-time baseball player if we had kind of stuck with it. And you never know. You have to balance all that stuff. But let's touch on that right when we come back. Again, Drew Robison, Gary Barnes with me today. This is Take It to the House. Welcome back. We are in our next segment here with my guest, Gary Barnes. We're talking about youth sports, and we had just finished talking about how kind of certain areas of culture. You talked about South Florida and how you felt like you could have a significant impact in Tennessee based on some of the things you felt like South Florida was doing better, and they really do an amazing job with youth football. When parents are dealing with the travel teams, and you hear a lot of differing opinions about, first of all, multi-sport athletes, but also the amount of time and money parents will invest in some of these youth programs. What have you learned, or what would you say to parents trying to balance all of that? Say for a kid that's 10 years old.
Man, me personally, I believe in kids doing multi sports. I think overall, as people think certain things, I think the most important one that you can do that enhances all of them is track.
Right.
I think that kids need to get track, whether it's a big boy or no matter what, everybody needs to get out there in track. And I think in most cases, you're able to get in AAU and USA around 7 years old. Um, I think that kids, even on the football field, kids look fast, but sometimes they can have a glitch in their run. They don't realize they're running with a terrible stride.
Yeah.
It's things like
Yeah.
that that can be corrected. Because one thing about track, once a kid learns how to push himself to the limits, you'll have a kid that, number one, that probably never get tired. He'll get tired, but he ain't gonna get tired fast as everybody else.
Right.
Not only that, he knows how to push himself further. He knows how to push through exhaustion. Then you also have the scenario where track transfers to everything. He's automatically faster. He's faster. And when I say all kids need to run track, the thing about AAU and USA, um, you can, even for a big man, he can get out there every day and run the 100. Not like school sports, so they can only do 4 people to each event. And now, since you wasn't the fastest in your group, now you need to run distance. No, everybody, if you're thinking that you're going to play baseball, uh, basketball, or whatever, you become a better kid by getting out there, going through a track regimen as far as training,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
workouts, and because just say if a kid is running a 12 flat, by the end of the track season, if he done got all the way down to 11 flat, that might have still got him eighth in every race. But
Right.
he's just that much better in all the other sports at
Right.
that point. He's a faster kid on the football field. He's a faster kid from going first to second base.
Right.
All those things mean a lot. Basketball, I just think basketball wise, too many parents get caught up in the game. Oh, let's do this game, let's do that game, and they minimize the focus on the training and the skill. Those guys in Maryland, one thing that I've seen when it comes to Maryland kids and stuff like that, up north kids, is that they'll get out of the car with their trainer. They're training the aspects of dribbling, ball skills, all of that is philosophized the right way all the way through.
Yeah.
Investments, and you talked about investments. That'd be the one thing, if me coming on this podcast of yours, that I would love to make sure we try and bridge that gap, because resources, investing. And I ain't just talking about one market versus the other. I'm talking about as a total, because if I show you one grouping of kids that don't have the resources, I can show you another grouping of kids on the other side of the track that don't have the resources either. Where, as far as us as people, we
Right.
know what it takes.
Right.
We know if we're pushing money into this and pushing money into that right now, it's more money being invested in the soccer than it is when it comes to football and some of these greater sports.
Right.
I just think that we could do more as a community,
Right.
making sure that we help parents when it comes, because it takes training. Without training now, our training used to be, we leave the house early in the morning, we jump on our bike and ride all across town, or we go to basketball court to basketball court. Well,
Right.
kids can't do that no more.
Right.
It's just the society is not like
Right.
that anymore.
Right.
So how do you offset that? Metro schools right now, they're not opening up gyms anymore.
Yeah.
They're not opening up gyms. So where are kids really getting this development at? You have to use the resources that you have. And right now, for me, I've found that the private sector is more willing to open more doors to allow people to come in, train, and develop with less scrutiny over access. Now, I am trying to work with Metro a lot to try and get that changed because point blank, where the kids get to go
Right.
to have open gym,
Right.
to have open access to get better at football without just it being in grass with rocks on it, scenarios like that.
Yeah.
So it's really a community thing right now, especially at this age and this function right here, that where we got to come and we got to develop together, because I do see where on this side of the track, certain kids don't even get to meet other kids because people are comfortable in their lane.
Yeah.
The other side don't have the means to come to the other lane.
Right.
So what makes that happen? Men, women, business professionals coming together
Yeah.
to talk about how we make one big melting pot of development for these kids.
Yeah. You know, I know you'll agree with this. I think we've probably talked about it before, but probably the greatest thing in our American culture, our society right now, that is the answer for division. Just any division. It could be racial division. It could be socioeconomic division. It could be political division. It could be regional division. The greatest answer to that is sports, I think. And I've said for a long time, and I even as I coached varsity high school basketball, there's no greater image of, I even take it to a spiritual level. I'll say there's no greater image of heaven on earth than getting in a huddle, a football huddle with 11 guys. Because in a football huddle, you can't be all the same.
That's right.
You've got 11 very different roles. You've got 11 very different dudes that are in there.
That's right.
And, as you get to the higher levels, of course, but even not necessarily in the higher levels of college, even at the high school level, you're getting in a huddle, you're getting ready to risk your safety and put your well-being, your physical well-being, in the hands of a teammate that may have nothing in common with you. That's once right. You leave that football field. And that is one of the greatest lessons in life to me that sports teaches, but in particular football teaches. Because I mentioned this to Buddy, I was born in 1970, and right after the Vietnam War, and with the exception of, I guess, the Gulf War in some situations, but for the most part, my whole life, our whole lives, has been peacetime. There's been no, Vietnam, Korea, World War II, and my parents and grandparents, they all lived in a world where everybody had some family members that were killed in action. And fortunately, we haven't lived through that, and in some ways, I guess it's made our society softer. But football is one of those things, and I can remember a couple of times as a kid. Definitely the first time I would distinctly remember being in 5th grade at Oak Hill School with Coach Ed Hesse. He was a track coach for a long time. But we were in two-a-days, and I remember literally thinking, and I was 11, so I probably wasn't exactly correct, but I remember thinking, I'm going to die today. I'm going to die on this field. I'm not going home today. And when you're 11, you're not always you don't understand everything. But when you really, really believe that you're going to die, it does something to you. And then when you make it through that, it changes you.
Right. And
I can remember there was a combination of exhaustion and pain and really, really get into it. And I loved football, but I remember thinking, this is horrible. I don't want to do this anymore. And I remember we were doing drills, and I had a really bad headache, and I was hitting guys with a headache, and just doing it anyway. And it was, but anyway, it does something to youth kids when they go through hard things, like you mentioned with the track, being able to work through exhaustion
That's right.
because you've trained through it. That translates to everything else in life, because guess what? You're never going to be able to map it out, but without question, life is gonna knock you down.
And you're not
It's
gonna
gonna
quit.
knock you silly to a point that it's gonna be so hard you didn't even know it could be that hard. And then how do you respond to that?
That's right.
And then not only the hard things, the challenging things, but just the relational things. How do I build a bridge with somebody who maybe doesn't agree with my views on whatever? Somebody that's got a different background than me. It's like you can find ways, and sports teaches that to kids. So anyway, well, listen. Let me just ask you as we wrap up. What are you focused on now? What are you working on now? And what's next for you? And you can actually, before you get into the youth stuff, maybe just touch on Jordan. How's he doing? I know he's finished a year, almost his first year. Probably.
Yes.
Are they getting ready for spring?
They're getting ready
football?
for spring, right? Mm-hmm.
So he's a freshman. Did he redshirt? Is that a thing?
He redshirted, but he
Okay.
traveled. He traveled. He was one of the 3 freshmen that traveled to every game,
Nice.
dressed for every game.
And he's a DB. Is
He's
that
a
right?
DB.
Okay.
That's right. So overall, man, I just actually got back from New Hampshire. I went up there Thursday night. On a Thursday night, jumped up there 6:30 in the morning. I'm outside his dorm, waiting on him to come out for the team workout.
Yeah.
Went to the team workout, got to see him operate in that, and then after that, man, I put on my backpack. I went to all 3 classes with him throughout that day. Went in the Japanese lecture. Also went to his econ class, went to his writing class, and basically hung out with him throughout the night. Next day, we went. I sat in on his DB meeting. And then actually went and watched him train, and actually got out there and helped him train him and a few more of the other DBs, and took them all to Walmart, let them get things that they needed and stuff like that. And I was back up out of there. I was back home, but I felt fulfilled because I just had never heard. It's all the things that where I use what I went through, and I say to myself, you know what? I'm going to make sure that he has somebody to help guide him throughout college,
Right.
high school. That's part of the same reason why went to Brentwood Academy. Everything that I was lacking coming out of Whites Creek, I felt that I'm not going to have him feel this way with society and everything going into college. So Brentwood Academy was a great fit for that, to teach him
Yeah.
America, teach him, you know, just more balance with race, more balance
Right.
with himself. The
Right.
greatest thing out of it all, you talking about where I didn't go to church a lot. We come from a great Christian background,
Yeah.
but Brentwood Academy was able to help advance the Christian dynamics with my son that makes him probably one of the most spiritual people in my family at this point. And
Yeah.
and so that right there alone is a win. So to go up there to Dartmouth and then to see his walk, his everyday walk, to see how people respect him, how people acknowledge him, how his teachers even admire him. Oh man, nah, hey, I'm back home now with a full heart. Just knowing
That's
that,
awesome.
we've done
Well,
it.
just to let you know, I just realized, maybe it was last week, within the last couple weeks, I communicated with a guy that I worked with in Maryland. He's originally from Boston, lived in South Florida for a while, but he and I coached together in Maryland, and he is working in the development office at Dartmouth.
Okay.
And I let him know that I knew of a player who is playing at Dartmouth, but his name is Jim Damaraki, and I'm going to go to see him sometime this spring or summer, and I'm going to do a podcast with Jim. But I'm hoping that I can actually go to Dartmouth and do it with him, and if I can do it, I probably won't go to all Jordan's classes with him, but if I could go to a practice and just watch him practice one day, I think that would be awesome.
Check on Ian
And
while you're down there too.
I will definitely, when I do that, I will let you know the details. And I need to get those spring practice dates just so I know those as well. I might be able to center around that. But Jim's a good friend, and he's a little bit older than I am. He is a great role model to me as a dad. His kids are just a little bit older. I think his youngest was right at the age of or a couple years older than my oldest, and they were both girls basketball players. And so yeah, he's a great guy. But I found out he's at Dartmouth, so I thought of you, thought of Jordan. So tell me about the Crimson Tide, or just in general, kind of what's next and what you're doing this spring and summer.
Well, my big thing is that I'm Team Tennessee. I'm Team Tennessee all the way through. I look now for platforms where kids can come together, um, some of the best kids around, and we can put them on some of the top platforms out here to go against other states, other great programs, all of that. Rutherford County Crimson Tide is basically, that's the home base. That's the
Right.
home base where, I donate my time. I'm around good families, good folks who are wanting to see their kids get better. But the Team Tennessee focus mainly comprises of FBU
Yep.
and Tennessee Future Stars.
Yep.
Within those two platforms right there, and definitely the Crimson Tide, my job right now, man, is to continue to grow those platforms the to where is almost like a household name. That every kid should want to attempt to be on one of those programs.
Yeah.
Not to mention, when I say Team Tennessee is for every kid. Even if you go out for one of these programs or platforms, I don't believe nobody should be cut from Team Tennessee.
Yeah.
Team Tennessee is just a overall grouping of parents that want better for their kids.
Right.
So that's more of my energy now. And I think the main thing that I got to kind of pull myself away from, because for so long I've been just a tool. I've been coaching, I've been mentoring. Now I got to get out here and kind of find funds
Right.
for the programs. And I ain't just talking about Crimson Tide. If a program is doing it the right way, they have, I think everything starts with the money. I think if they
Yeah.
have their structures in place with far as their treasurer, their board, and then on top of that, they're running their program the right way, where uh, from a standard of excellence, then at that point, there should be resources out here for those programs. Because too many times, and I just speak a little bit differently for you. Right now, I get texts all the time. It's about helmets, programs needing helmets, things like that, because you got to recertify them helmets like
Yeah.
every 2-3 years.
Yep.
Well, in most communities, we don't have the resources to continue to do that.
Right.
Well, we can go over here to another program where they got 300, 400 Visa helmets, top of the line. How do I bring resources like this? Who do I talk to? Who do I learn from? I realize I got to go sit down with people. I got to meet more people like yourself. I got to meet more people that can
Yeah.
point me in the right direction for everybody, for all of Middle Tennessee.
Right.
And as we take care of Middle Tennessee, all of Tennessee.
Yeah.
Because if you ever go down to Memphis and see what's going on in Memphis, you may see the most talent you've ever seen. But at the end of the day, you also see some of the most poverty kids that you probably will ever see as well.
Right.
And they don't have the resources for a lot of things. But if the programs are running it the right way,
Yep.
doing it the right way, no, I need to be a person that is in play, that brings resources to the table for kids that are trying to do the best
Right.
to be able to have.
Right. Right. That's awesome. Well, is Team Tennessee is that a specific organization, or is that just a sort of a general umbrella that you're
It's sort of a
working under?
general. It's sort of a general umbrella because let's just say FBU. Well,
Yeah.
FBU is a brand.
Yeah.
Okay, that only happens for a segment of the year.
Yep.
Future Stars, it's a segment of the year. Most of this stuff you struggle, especially like FBU, you struggle to get kids lined up for that because now, um, either they don't know about it, or let's just say it doesn't work out. If it doesn't work out, sometimes FBU may ask us to go somewhere way farther than where we're willing to go to.
Yeah.
Well, just because FBU don't work out is no reason for the kids not to be able to still have access to something. So Team Tennessee is the ability that no matter what, we can take Team Tennessee kids and put them into this platform. We could take Team Tennessee and put them into that platform. But one thing about it, if this brand is not the best for Team Tennessee, then Team Tennessee is still rolling.
Right. Right.
Nothing should stop
Yeah.
what we're about, what our direction as a community
Yeah.
feels that our kids should be growing towards. And we can always go out and groupings of kids come together and say, okay, well, let's travel over here. Let's travel over there. Look, Georgia's always up the road. And I guarantee you, Georgia can always put a team together. If we're talking about development and stuff like that, but there's no use of going across that line without the right kids on that team
Yeah.
going up there to compete. A Team Tennessee brand can always bring the right kids together and push them up and get better and develop.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, man, that is so encouraging and inspiring, actually, just to hear you talk about your passion for the community, um, and for kids, and it's we're something else that we have in common is that you and I both still have the passion for athletics, and we have a passion for kids, and we're also kind of uh, we're looking at it through the lens of not our own kids anymore because they're past that point, um, which is really kind of unique and kind of awesome. I remember when I was helping my daughter coach the sixth grade girls basketball team, we would meet with parents, and Allie at the time, maybe she was a little younger, she's 25, and I'm 50, and we're meeting with these parents, and it's kind of to them it's like we're perfect because I'm like the old guy that knows stuff. She's like she knows stuff, but she can relate to a 13-year-old girl in ways that I can't. But it was weird to me that all these parents were looking at me like, you know, you're really can give us some wisdom in terms of parenting advice. And that was kind of weird for me because I was a coach when I was younger than the parents. And then I was a coach when I was the age of the parents.
Right.
And now I'm a coach when I'm older than the parents.
Got all three phases of it, yeah.
And pretty soon I'll be probably the age of the grandparents. My grandkids are only
Right.
2 and 2 months, but it won't be long before they're dribbling basketballs and probably playing soccer and all that stuff. Well, Gary, this has been awesome. I can assure you, we will do this again. If not more often, definitely, every several months or so. I want to catch up on what's going on with you and what you're doing, and this has been great. Thank you so much for your time.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And just definitely within this platform right here, just please know, and this is a message to everybody, let's all come together. Let's figure out ways that we can do better for the youth, do better for the next generation of kids, because everything as we grew up, that landscape has changed.
Right.
People got to be informed. People got to
Right.
know exactly how to make strategic moves to put their kids in the best lane to be successful for college and just life. But we're out here. We're out here. I'm out here. And anybody that's hearing this, if you want to help, you want to be a part of what we're about when it comes to Tennessee, Tennessee youth, Tennessee growth, feel free to contact me. Contact me through you,
Yeah.
whatever it takes.
Well, and also one of the things I do when I edit is I put graphics up here. So even before now, throughout as I edit, I'll get all your contact information. I'll be having your handle, whatever you want to put up, so that as if parents are listening and they want to get in touch with you, they will know how to do that. So that's really great. Well, Gary Barnes, once again, thank you so much. I'm Drew Robison. This has been Take It to the House. We'll see you next time.